The invitation arrived in a pale blue envelope with a watercolor rabbit on the flap, the same rabbit I had approved when I paid the printer. I was 62, and the baby shower was for my nephew Ethan's first child. I had raised Ethan after my sister died and paid every major invoice, bringing my total to $18,640. My name was nowhere on the invitation. At first, I thought it was an oversight. Then I saw the line beneath the date, hosted with love by Gail Whitmore and the maternal family. Gail was my nephew's mother-in-law. I called Ethan's wife, Marissa, and asked whether another invitation was coming to me. She paused just long enough to make the answer hurt. Linda, we decided the shower needs to feel emotionally safe. You're not on the guest list. She explained that my presence could make the afternoon about money, then reminded me that the final catering payment was due Friday. Marissa did not understand that I had spent 38 years in payroll and contract administration. I had kept every page. If family loyalty required me to finance my own exclusion, what exactly did they think I owed them next? Keep listening, because the invitation was only the first document that did not say what Marissa thought it said. The role I had always played. I became Ethan's guardian when he was 11. My younger sister, Rachel, died after a fast-moving illness that left the whole family disoriented and one little boy carrying a duffel bag into my two-bedroom house in Columbus, Ohio. His father had disappeared years earlier, and there was no serious debate about where Ethan would go. I was unmarried, steady, and already the person everyone called when a bill was late or a plan had fallen apart. I did not think of taking him in as a sacrifice. Rachel had been my closest friend, and loving her son felt like a continuation of loving her. I moved my home office into the dining room so he could have the second bedroom, attended every school meeting, and pretended not to notice when he wrote Aunt Linda on forms that asked for Mother. Ethan grew into a thoughtful, cautious man. He became an insurance adjuster, the kind who returned calls and read the entire policy before telling someone what was covered. He disliked conflict so much that he often confused peace with postponement. That was the weakness we shared. I handled problems by solving them before anyone else felt their weight. Ethan handled them by hoping reasonable people would eventually calm down. For years, that arrangement made us close. He called every Sunday. He replaced the loose boards on my back steps without being asked. When he proposed to Marissa, he brought her to my house before telling the rest of the family because, as he put it, "You're the person whose face I need to see." Marissa was charming when she wanted to be. She had quick eyes, an easy laugh, and a talent for making ordinary plans sound like the beginning of a beautiful new life. At 31, she had moved through several jobs in marketing and social media. She said she had never found a company that understood her creativity. What she really wanted was to build an event planning business centered on meaningful family experiences. The phrase sounded harmless then. Her mother, Gail, was different. Gail spoke in polished sentences and believed presentation revealed character. She never entered a room without noticing the table settings. She was not openly rude to me during the engagement, but she treated me as a useful relative rather than Ethan's parent. At the rehearsal dinner, she introduced me to a cousin as Ethan's aunt who helped out when he was younger. I corrected her gently. I raised him from 11. Gail smiled as if I had added an unnecessary detail. Of course. Families help in all kinds of ways. Ethan heard it. He looked uncomfortable, but he said nothing. I said nothing too. That became the pattern. I paid $22,000 toward their wedding because they had student debt and little savings. When the florist and videographer costs increased, I added another $2,500. Ethan promised to repay part of it after his annual bonus. He did not. I did not remind him. 2 years later, when they bought a small house in Westerville, I loaned them $36,000 for the down payment. Unlike the wedding money, that was documented. I drew up a simple promissory note with no interest for 5 years and low payments afterward. Ethan signed it immediately. Marissa signed after asking whether formal paperwork meant I did not trust them. "It means we all remember the same agreement," I told her. She laughed, but I noticed how hard she pressed the pen. They made 4 payments, then stopped when Marissa left her job to develop her business. Each month Ethan called with a different explanation. A new laptop was necessary. Their furnace needed work. Marissa had paid for a branding package. I kept a spreadsheet, not because I planned to punish them, but because numbers were the one language in my life that did not change its story depending on who was upset. When Marissa became pregnant, I was genuinely happy. Ethan had wanted children for years. He came to my house holding the ultrasound picture with both hands, as though it might disappear if he loosened his grip. I cried before he did. I made coffee neither of us drank, and for one afternoon the complications around money seemed small compared with the idea of a new person entering the family. The pale blue invitation began that day, although none of us knew it. Marissa announced that she wanted a garden shower at Hawthorne Conservatory, a restored greenhouse outside Dublin. She showed me photographs of tall windows, white iron tables, and lemon trees in enormous clay pots. The main room could hold 80 people. The venue was expensive, but she said the shower would double as the first event in her professional portfolio. "I need to show what I can do," she said. "After the baby comes, I want to launch properly." Ethan looked at me. It was the familiar look he had used since he was a boy when he wanted something but felt ashamed to ask. I asked what they could afford. Marissa said Gail would handle games, favors, and a dessert table. Ethan could contribute $2,000. They hoped I could cover the venue and catering. I should have said no. Not because I did not love the baby, but because a shower is a gift, not a test of devotion. Instead, I asked for the proposal. The first estimate was $11,900. Within 6 weeks, it became $18,640. The changes arrived one by one: upgraded linens, a photographer, a floral arch, custom place cards, a second entree, valet service, and a printed invitation designed around a watercolor rabbit. I paid because each item seemed smaller than the argument that would follow if I refused. That was my emotional weakness. I could negotiate a vendor contract without blinking, but when Ethan sounded tired, I became the woman who had once promised a frightened 11-year-old that he would not lose another home. Priya Shah, the event manager at Hawthorne, sent the contract to me because my card paid the deposit. She was direct, organized, and careful. During our first call, she said, "Miss Carver, because you are the contracting client, changes and cancellations require written authorization from your email address. Guests may coordinate details, but they cannot bind you financially." I appreciated the clarity. I signed every page and saved the PDF in a green folder beside my desk. At the time, the folder felt like an administrative formality. Later, it became the first solid thing I held when the family story began shifting under my feet. Marissa chose the rabbit invitation during a planning lunch at my house. She held the sample against the sunlight and said it looked gentle, expensive, and not aggressively gendered. I paid the printer $486. She promised to save the first finished copy for me. For the next month, I did what I had always done. I answered vendor questions. I compared menu prices. I transferred money on time. I listened while Marissa described the shower as the event that would establish her reputation. What I did not realize was that she had started removing me from the story long before she removed me from the guest list. The betrayal they thought I would accept. The invitation came on a Tuesday afternoon. I had spent the morning reconciling volunteer accounts for a neighborhood food pantry, then stopped at the mailbox before carrying groceries inside. The pale blue envelope looked familiar enough to make me smile. That smile lasted perhaps 5 seconds. The front of the invitation listed Marissa and Ethan's names in gold lettering. The back included parking instructions, a registry link, and the line naming Gail and the maternal family as hosts. There was no mention of me. More important, there was no small card with my assigned table, which Priya had told us would be included for immediate family. I read it twice. Then I called Tessa. Tessa was Rachel's daughter from an earlier relationship and Ethan's older half-sister. She was 39, practical, divorced, and raising 2 teenagers. She had grown up mostly with her father but spent summers with Rachel, which meant she and Ethan loved each other without ever developing the easy habits of siblings who shared a home. Tessa did not soften facts to protect anyone. "Did you get your shower invitation?" I asked. "Yesterday." "Why? Was there a table card inside?" She hesitated. "Yes. Table 2. Aunt Linda, what's wrong?" I told her what mine contained. Tessa went quiet, then said, "Maybe yours is different because you're hosting." "It says Gail is hosting. You're paying. Those are apparently different things." She offered to send a photograph of her enclosure. The card read, "Please present this card at check-in. Table 2. Doors open at 1:30 p.m. My envelope had no card. Ethan did not answer, so I called Marissa and gave her the chance to say there had been a printing error. She answered brightly. "Did it arrive?" "Yes. The invitation is lovely. There isn't a table card in mine." The brightness disappeared from her voice. "Right. I was going to call you." "Then call me now." She exhaled. "Linda, the last few planning conversations have been tense. Mom and I talked, and we think the shower needs to feel emotionally safe for me." "What does that mean?" "It means I don't want to be worried about criticism all day." I searched my memory. I had questioned the cost of imported peonies and asked why the photographer needed a meal, but I had not raised my voice. I had not insulted her. I had approved every final choice. "Are you saying I am not invited?" We decided to keep the guest list to people who can be fully supportive. There were 76 names on the seating draft. Former coworkers, neighbors, women from Gail's tennis group, and 2 social media creators Marissa had never met in person were considered fully supportive. The woman paying the invoices was not. "Does Ethan agree with this?" "Ethan understands that stress is dangerous during pregnancy." That answer told me he had not agreed so much as failed to stop it. I kept my voice level. "The final catering payment is due Friday. Do you expect me to make it?" Marissa sounded offended by the question. "The shower is for the baby. You're not going to punish your grandnephew because you feel excluded." "I do feel excluded. I am excluded. This is exactly what I mean. Everything becomes a transaction with you." I looked at the invitation again. A transaction is when someone expects $18,640 from a person they refuse to let enter the room. She did not answer immediately. Then she said, "I knew you would make this about money." That sentence was carefully prepared. She had likely said it to Ethan, Gail, and anyone else who might question the arrangement. It transformed my payment from generosity into evidence against me. If I continued paying, I proved love. If I stopped, I proved I had never loved them without conditions. "I need to speak with Ethan," I said. "He's working. Please don't upset him. He is 34 years old. He can survive a telephone call." Marissa ended the conversation by saying, "The caterer still needs confirmation by Friday at noon. Not goodbye. Not I'm sorry. A deadline." Ethan called 40 minutes later. He sounded exhausted before I said a word. "Aunt Linda, can we not turn this into a war? I received an invitation to an event I am not allowed to attend. Marissa is under a lot of pressure." "From whom?" From the pregnancy, the business, everything. She thinks you'll be watching for mistakes. I have been fixing those mistakes and paying for them. He lowered his voice. That's why she feels judged. There it was again. The help itself had become the offense. I asked him whether he wanted me at the shower. He took too long. I want everyone to get along, he said. That was not my question. I want you there. But I also need to support my wife. Supporting your wife does not require pretending I am unreasonable for noticing I have been banned. He told me Marissa had cried after our call. He said Gail believed my presence would make guests uncomfortable because of recent financial tension. I asked what financial tension Gail knew about. Just general stuff, he said. The down payment loan? Marissa told her we were working it out. You stopped making payments 17 months ago. We have not been working anything out. He became defensive. We have a baby coming. Which is why I have not demanded a payment. Then why bring it up now? I almost laughed, not because anything was funny, but because the logic had folded in on itself. I was not allowed to mention the unpaid loan when they used it to describe me as financially controlling. I asked him one more time whether he expected me to pay the final $4,920 catering balance. I thought that was already decided, he said. So was my attendance. He said, please don't do something you'll regret. After we hung up, I placed the rabbit invitation in the green contract folder. It no longer looked gentle. It looked like a receipt for my own erasure. That evening, Gail wrote in the family group chat that pregnancy should be surrounded by positivity and that some people needed to respect boundaries without retaliating. An aunt I barely knew replied, a gift should never buy access. Tessa called before I responded. Do not defend yourself in that chat. They are writing for an audience. She was right. I typed one sentence, I will discuss the contract directly with the people named in it. Then I muted the conversation. The next morning, Priya from Hawthorne called. Ms. Carver, I want to confirm an additional authorization request, she said. Marissa asked us to increase the floral installation and add a champagne-free sparkling bar. The revised amount is $3,260. She said you approved it verbally. I had approved nothing. I asked Priya to send me every pending change and every email associated with the event. Of course, she said. I have not processed the add-on because it did not come from your address. That call changed the shape of the problem. Being excluded was painful. Being expected to pay was exploitative. But someone telling a vendor that I had authorized thousands of dollars after banning me was something else. It was a pattern that could be documented. By noon, I had 12 emails, 2 revised proposals, and a message Marissa had sent Priya 3 days earlier. Linda gets overwhelmed by details. Please route approvals through me from now on. Marissa had not merely taken my seat. She had begun trying to take my authority. The details that didn't make sense. I spent Wednesday doing what I had always done when emotion threatened to blur a problem. I built a timeline. The first page contained the original venue agreement, signed by me on February 12. The contract named Linda Carver as the client and Hawthorne Conservatory as the venue. It allowed Marissa to coordinate decor and guest arrangements, but financial changes required my written approval. Cancellation before May 10 would return all payments except a $750 administrative fee and costs already committed to custom materials. The shower was scheduled for June 6. The cancellation deadline was still 9 days away. The second page was the catering agreement. I had paid $6,300 of the $11,220 total. The remaining $4,920 was due Friday. The caterer would release the date if payment was not received, but I could cancel before the same May 10 deadline with a partial refund. The third page was the invitation invoice. $486, paid by my card. The order form listed Marissa as designer and me as billing contact. In the notes, Marissa had written, host line, Gail Whitmore and maternal family. The proof I received had shown only the date, location, and registry information. The host line was added afterward. I called the printer and asked whether there were two versions. The owner, a woman named Celeste, checked the job history. The file was revised once, she said. Mrs. Hale requested the host line and asked that the proof go only to her because it was a surprise. Did she change the guest list quantities? The order was 78 invitations. One was marked courtesy copy, no entry card. Who was that for? Celeste hesitated, then said, the label says Linda Carver. I thanked her and asked for a copy of the order notes. She sent them within 10 minutes. The exclusion had not been a last-minute response to tension. It had been built into the print order nearly a month earlier, while Marissa was still sitting at my kitchen table asking whether I preferred chicken piccata or salmon. The explanation depended on recent conflict. Because the decision predated that conflict, the conflict was not the cause. It was the justification. The next inconsistency came from the photographer. I had agreed to a 4-hour package for $1,650 because Marissa said she wanted family portraits. When I called to confirm who had authority over the booking, the photographer mentioned that Marissa had asked for extra images of the host family before guests arrived. Which family is that? I asked. Mrs. Hale, her husband, her mother, and the baby grandmothers. There is only one grandmother alive in that group, and it isn't me. The photographer read the shot list, Gail greeting guests, Gail and Marissa beneath the floral arch, and Ethan posed with them. My name appeared once, not as a person but in a note, avoid discussing financial sponsor during vendor interviews. Marissa had planned short promotional videos for her event business. She wanted the shower to establish her as the creative force and Gail as the gracious host. My presence presented a problem because guests might thank me or ask how I was involved. The event could not market Marissa's independence if the person financing it was standing beside the dessert table. That was inference, not proof. The documents established deliberate exclusion and unauthorized changes, not every motive in Marissa's head. Then Tessa sent me a screenshot. A private social media account for Marissa's new business had posted a preview, our founder's most personal event yet. A luxury garden celebration created from concept to completion by Marissa Hale Events. Full reveal coming June 6th. The image showed the watercolor rabbit, Hawthorne's greenhouse, and the floral arch I had paid for. Tessa wrote, she is using the shower as a launch. I replied, I know. An hour later, Ethan came to my house. He still had his work badge clipped to his belt and looked as if he had slept in his shirt. I made coffee out of habit, then left both cups on the counter. He saw the green folder on the table. You built a case file. I organized the contracts. That is what I mean. The printer was told a month ago to send me a courtesy invitation without an entry card. He looked away. Did you know? I asked. Not that early. When did you know? Last week. And you said nothing while I approved the catering menu on Monday. He rubbed his forehead. Marissa said she would talk to you. She talked to me after the invitation arrived. I know it looks bad. It is bad, Ethan. Looking is not the issue. I showed him the unauthorized add-on request and the email saying approval should go through Marissa because I became overwhelmed. He read it twice. She probably meant she was trying to help. She told a vendor I approved $3,260 that I had not approved. Nothing was charged. Because Priya followed the contract. He pulled out a chair but did not sit. What do you want me to do? He was asking me to design his integrity for him. I want you to tell your wife that I will not fund an event from which I am banned. I want you to acknowledge that the exclusion was planned before the explanation you gave me. And I want no one to represent that they can authorize charges in my name. He said Marissa would see that as an attack on her business. I told him her business could not be built on my credit card. Then he said something that revealed how far the family story had moved without me. Gail says you promised this as a gift. I promised to host a shower. Marissa thinks hosting means paying, not controlling the guest list. I am not trying to control the guest list. I am asking why the host is forbidden to attend. He finally sat down. Because she thinks you'll tell people you paid. There it was. Not safety. Not stress. Not criticism. Image. Marissa believed that if I stood in the room, the truth of the event would become visible. She wanted the generosity without the giver, the money without the history, the photograph without the person outside its frame. I asked Ethan whether he thought that was fair. He stared at the invitation in the folder. No. It was the first direct answer he had given me. Then fix it, I said. He promised to speak with her that evening. At 9:30, he called. Marissa would not add me to the guest list. Gail believed changing the decision would reward financial pressure. They still expected the final catering balance because canceling would embarrass them and damage Marissa's business before it launched. I asked Ethan what he believed. I think everybody has made mistakes, he said. That was his refuge. If everyone had made mistakes, no one had to be accountable for a specific choice. What mistake did I make? I asked. You keep records of everything. It makes people feel like they owe you. They do owe me. There is a signed loan. See? This is why Marissa feels the way she does. After we hung up, I opened my spreadsheet. The unpaid down payment balance was $33,600. The shower payments already made totaled $13,720. The pending balance and requested add-ons would bring my immediate exposure above $22,000. The numbers could not measure Ethan's love. They measured what my fear of losing him had cost. The following morning, another email arrived from Priya. Marissa had asked whether the venue could accept a different card for the final balance while leaving my contract in place. The card belonged to Hale Family Events LLC. Priya had run a standard authorization check and learned the business card could not cover the amount. She had not attempted the charge. Marissa was looking for a way to preserve my liability while presenting herself as the payer. I called Priya and asked a simple question. Can the contract be transferred to Ethan and Marissa if they reimburse what I have paid and assume all remaining obligations? Yes, she said. We would need a signed assignment, proof of payment, and a replacement card by noon Friday. That gave me a fair solution. It also gave them a deadline. The truth I could no longer ignore. Before I made any final decision, I wanted to understand whether I was responding only to humiliation or to a larger pattern. Anger can be accurate, but it can also make every old memory look like evidence. I did not want to become the person Marissa described, controlling, vindictive, and eager to make a family celebration about myself. So I reviewed the last 4 years. There was the wedding budget that grew after vendors were booked, the down payment loan they stopped paying, and smaller transfers for a furnace, Marissa's website, prenatal photographs, and a crib they later returned without repaying me. Each request had been framed as temporary. Each refusal had been described in advance as evidence that I cared more about money than family. I had avoided that accusation by saying yes. The pattern was not that Ethan and Marissa asked for help. Families ask for help. The pattern was that my help erased my right to ask questions. Tessa came over Thursday evening with takeout. She did not tell me what to do. She read the documents, asked what the cancellation rules were, and listened while I explained the transfer option. What do you actually want? She asked. I want Ethan to choose honesty without being forced. That is not a contract option. I know. Do you want to attend the shower? I looked at the rabbit invitation. Not the way things are now. I would spend the whole afternoon wondering who knew I had been removed and then restored. Then why are you still considering paying? The answer was embarrassing because it was so old. Because Ethan lost his mother. Because I promised he would always have family. Because I am afraid that if I stop being useful, he will discover I am optional. Tessa put down her fork. Aunt Linda, he may be treating you as optional because you keep proving your usefulness is guaranteed. She did not say it cruelly. That made it harder to dismiss. The next morning, I emailed Ethan and Marissa together. I kept the message short and factual. I stated that I would not pay further costs for an event I was prohibited from attending. I offered two reasonable options. First, they could add me to the guest list, allow me to attend without a speech or public acknowledgement, and agree in writing that no additional charges would be requested without my approval. Second, they could reimburse the $13,720 already paid, provide a replacement payment method, and accept assignment of the venue and catering contracts. I offered a 12-month, no-interest repayment schedule if they could not reimburse me immediately. The deadline was Friday at noon, the same deadline established by the venue. I ended with one sentence: I am not asking to control your celebration, I am refusing to finance my exclusion from it. Ethan replied first. I think option 1 is reasonable. Let me talk to her. Marissa replied 19 minutes later. Her message was longer. She said my email confirmed that my generosity had always been conditional. She said pregnancy was not the time for legalistic demands. She said Gail had offered to contribute $2,000 toward future costs but could not reimburse old gifts. She rejected both options and stated that the family would proceed with the event as planned. Then she added, any cancellation will be explained honestly to the guests. It was a threat dressed as transparency. She intended to tell people I had withdrawn support because I was denied access. I did not respond. At 11:15, Ethan called. Can you extend the deadline? The venue set the deadline. Marissa says you arranged it that way to pressure us. The date is printed in the contract we signed in February. She needs time. Time to decide whether I am a person or a payment method. He sighed. Please don't say things like that. Then give me a better description. He admitted they did not have enough credit available to assume the contracts. Gail could contribute only $2,000. Marissa's business account contained less than $900. They had expected my final payment and had already told guests the event was fully funded. I offered a payment plan, I said. She thinks signing another debt agreement with you would give you more control. Then she can choose the first option. She says she won't feel safe. Ethan, do you believe I am unsafe? His voice became quiet. No. Do you believe I would cause a scene? No. Do you believe I should pay? Silence. I don't know, he said. That was the moment I could no longer blame only Marissa. She was driving the decision, but Ethan was holding the door open. He knew the facts. He knew the history. He knew I was not dangerous. He still wanted me to absorb the cost so he would not have to confront his wife. At 11:52, Priya emailed to ask whether I had made a decision. I called her instead. Please cancel the venue contract and all optional services under my authorization, I said. Honor any unavoidable fees, return refundable amounts to the original payment method, and do not accept substitutions made in my name. Priya repeated the request to confirm it. The estimated refund would be $11,970 after the administrative fee and committed printing and floral costs. The caterer would return $5,420 of the amount paid, retaining the tasting and reservation fees. Some vendor deposits were non-refundable. My total unrecovered cost would be approximately $2,330. It was not nothing. But it was less than the price of pretending the arrangement was normal. I asked Priya not to discuss my reasons with guests or other relatives. She said the venue would communicate only with the contracting parties. At 12:07, Marissa called. I let it ring twice before answering. You canceled it, she said. Yes. How could you do this to us? I gave you two options. You gave us an ultimatum. A deadline attached to a choice is not automatically an ultimatum. Sometimes it is a contract. She began crying. I had heard her cry before, usually when a cost increased or a plan changed. This time the crying carried genuine panic. She had invited 76 people to an event that no longer had a venue. My business will be ruined, she said. Your business did not pay for the event. You wanted this. You wanted to humiliate me. I wanted either a seat or reimbursement. You chose neither. She said I would never see the baby. She said Ethan would finally understand who I really was. She said Gail had been right about me. I listened until she stopped. Then I said, I hope you do not use a child to enforce a financial arrangement. But I cannot control that choice either. She hung up. By 1 o'clock, the family group chat had exploded. Marissa announced that I had canceled the shower because she protected herself from toxic behavior. Gail wrote that they were devastated but would rebuild. Several relatives sent messages calling me cruel. One asked whether I could at least restore the catering while they found another venue. I did not defend myself publicly. Instead, I sent Ethan the cancellation confirmation, the refund breakdown, the two options I had offered, and the printer's record showing my exclusion had been planned a month earlier. I wrote, I love you. I will not argue through other relatives. When you are ready to discuss the facts directly, call me. He did not reply for 4 days. During those 4 days, the cancellation exposed another truth. Marissa had told Gail I paid because I wanted grandmother privileges, told others I was financially possessive, and presented Hale Family Events as the shower's sponsor. Vendors called with practical questions about unused materials and promotional images. I answered only what affected my contracts, but the outlines became clear. Marissa had built 3 versions of the same shower. To me, it was a family gift. To guests, it was hosted by Gail. To potential clients, it was a fully produced event by Marissa's company. The same money had been assigned 3 different meanings. I had been expected to pay for all of them and appear in none. The line I finally drew. Ethan came to my house the following Tuesday. He had not shaved, and his usual careful manner had been replaced by a restless anger. He did not take off his jacket. They found another venue, he said. I'm glad. Gail's Church Hall. It holds 50, not 76. They have to cut the guest list. That is difficult. Marissa says she cannot recover from the embarrassment. I waited. She wants you to pay the caterer's new delivery fee and the rental tables, he said. It would be about $2,700. I stared at him, wondering whether he heard himself. No. Aunt Linda. No. It was a small word. I had used thousands of words over the years to avoid it. He paced toward the window. The cancellation cost more than that. The cancellation cost me $2,330. Paying the new expenses would cost another $2,700 and confirm that nothing has changed. This is still your family. That is why I offered a fair solution before canceling. He said Marissa believed the options were designed to force her to include me. I agreed that one option required my inclusion. The other required them to assume their own event. She could not afford that, he said. Then she could not afford the event. He flinched as though I had insulted her. In our family, stating that someone could not afford something had become more offensive than expecting another person to pay for it. I told him I was ending all informal financial support. The down payment loan would remain under its existing terms. I would not demand acceleration or add interest, but payments would resume in 60 days. Any future gift for the baby would go into a custodial savings account controlled according to law, not through either parent. I would no longer pay household bills, business costs, or family events. Ethan sat at last. So this is punishment. It is a boundary. It feels the same from this side. Consequences often do. He looked at the green folder. You really planned all of this? I planned nothing until I received an invitation without an entry card. I showed him the first page of the print order again. He had already seen it, but this time he read the date carefully. March 26, he said. Yes. That was before the florist argument. Yes. She told me she decided after you criticized the peonies. I know. He sat very still. The lie was not new information, but dates make denial harder. A story can bend around feelings. It cannot easily bend around March 26th. I then showed him the social media preview, the photographer's shot list, and the note to avoid discussing the financial sponsor. I told him my interpretation. Marissa wanted the event for her business portfolio and feared my presence would reveal who financed it. I was careful to call that interpretation, not fact. Ethan's face tightened. She said the business post was just practice. Maybe it was. But she asked a vendor to accept charges I had not approved. That part is fact. He admitted he had known about the business launch. He had not known about the extra charges or the printer's courtesy copy. Gail had told him my invitation was omitted only after I became difficult. Why didn't you ask me? I said. Because every conversation at home turned into a crisis. So you let the crisis choose the truth. He looked at me then, and for the first time I saw the child he had been, terrified that one wrong move would cost him the person in front of him. I understood his fear. I no longer accepted it as an excuse. I am not asking you to leave your wife, I said. I am asking you to stop requiring me to disappear so you can avoid conflict with her. He covered his eyes with one hand. After a long silence, he said, What would repairing this look like? I had considered that question. I told him repair would require 4 things: a direct acknowledgement that the exclusion was planned, repayment of the unauthorized business-related costs, including the invitation and promotional deposits, resumption of the house loan payments, and no use of access to the baby as leverage in financial disagreements. I did not demand an apology in front of the family. Public humiliation had caused enough damage. I did not demand a seat at the replacement shower. By then, attending would have turned the event into a referendum on me. Ethan nodded slowly. I'll talk to her. You can tell her the conditions. You cannot negotiate them down for me. Before he left, he picked up the rabbit invitation. Why did you keep this? Because it reminds me that being sent an invitation is not the same as being welcomed. He placed it back in the folder more carefully than he had found it. 2 days later, Marissa sent an email. She did not acknowledge planning the exclusion. She accused me of collecting evidence against a pregnant woman. She offered to repay the $486 printing cost when feasible if I forgave the remaining house loan and paid $2,700 toward the replacement shower. It was not an apology. It was another exchange in which I surrendered something substantial to receive recognition of something obvious. I declined. Gail then called. Her voice was controlled, but the anger underneath it was unmistakable. Linda, mothers make decisions for their daughters during vulnerable times, she said. You should understand that. I understand protecting someone. I do not understand sending bills to the person you are protecting them from. You made a commitment to the baby. I made a commitment to pay for a specific event under a specific contract. This obsession with contracts is why people feel cold around you. Contracts become important when stories change. She said the church hall shower would be less elegant and that guests were already asking questions. I told her she was free to answer honestly. I had been removed from the guest list, offered transfer or inclusion, and cancelled after both options were rejected. That version makes Marissa look terrible, she said. I did not create the version. Gail ended the call after telling me I would regret missing the baby's milestones. For one night, I nearly gave in. I opened my banking app and imagined Ethan standing in a church hall while relatives whispered, and Marissa later deciding whether I deserved a photograph of the baby. Then I looked at the invitation. Paper does not carry intention. People give it meaning. I closed the app. The line I finally drew was not dramatic. No lawyer sent a letter. No police officer arrived. I simply stopped converting fear into payments. The day everything changed. The replacement shower took place on June 6 at Gail's church hall. I knew the date because it had been printed in gold on 78 invitations, including the one in my green folder. I did not attend. Tessa did. She had considered declining, but I asked her to go if she wanted to support Ethan and the baby. I did not want relatives choosing between us as proof of loyalty. That was the kind of system I was trying to leave. At 11 that morning, while I was trimming herbs on my back porch, Priya called unexpectedly. Miss Carver, I am sorry to bother you on a Saturday, she said. 2 people arrived at Hawthorne with vendors and said the cancellation had been reversed. My hand stopped over the rosemary. Who? Mrs. Hale and Mrs. Whitmore. They have a printed email that appears to authorize reinstatement under your name. Our staff recognized that it did not come through the contract portal. I asked Priya whether anyone had entered the event space. No. We have another booking this afternoon. Security asked them to leave the loading area. The email used my name and a variation of my address with one letter changed. It stated that I had reconsidered and approved use of the original floral arch, valet arrangement, and photography backdrop. It did not ask Hawthorne to host the full shower. It asked to collect prepaid custom items and stage photographs in the greenhouse before the church event. Marissa apparently wanted the remaining custom materials for portfolio photographs even though the event had moved. I told Priya I had sent no such authorization and asked her to preserve the email. I did not accuse anyone of a crime. Similar addresses can be created, forwarded, or misunderstood. But I confirmed in writing that no one could act in my name. 10 minutes later, Ethan called. Did you tell Hawthorne to throw Marissa out? Hawthorne called me because someone presented an email in my name. She was only picking up the flowers. Then why did the email say I approved it? Gail drafted something. Marissa thought you had released the custom items. I released nothing to them. The venue is handling refunds and committed materials according to the contract. He swore under his breath. Ethan rarely swore. This day is already a disaster, he said. I am sorry it is difficult. Are you? Yes. Being sorry does not require me to authorize false statements. He hung up. At 2:15, Tessa texted, "Call me when you can." Not emergency. Important. I waited until 4, because I did not want to spend the entire day monitoring an event I had chosen not to attend. When I called, she stepped outside the hall. The shower had begun late. The church had only 60 matching chairs, so several guests sat at folding tables borrowed from a classroom. The caterer delivered food, but there was no staff to plate it. Gail and 2 cousins served. The decorations were attractive but modest. None of that mattered to me. A loving shower does not require a greenhouse. The important part happened during Marissa's welcome speech. She thanked Gail for saving the day after a promised gift was cruelly withdrawn. She said some people use money to demand access and that becoming a mother had taught her to protect her child from manipulation. Tessa remained seated until Marissa held up one of the rabbit invitations. Even the invitations had to be reworked when our original sponsor made the day about herself, Marissa said. That statement was strange because the invitations had not been reworked. They still named Gail as host. But it invited a question from Celeste, the printer, who happened to be at the shower because Marissa had invited several vendors as prospective business contacts. According to Tessa, Celeste said, "The host line was your instruction from the beginning. We printed exactly what you approved." Marissa tried to move on. Gail asked Celeste not to discuss business details during a family speech. Then the photographer, also present, asked whether she was still expected to avoid identifying the financial sponsor in promotional content. She believed the cancellation meant the release terms had changed. The room did not erupt. No one shouted. Instead, the conversation became specific. A cousin asked who had paid. Gail said the details were private. Tessa said, Linda paid $13,720 before she was told she could not attend. She offered to transfer the contracts on a payment plan. Marissa accused Tessa of carrying my talking points. Tessa replied, "They are in the email you forwarded to Ethan. He showed it to me this morning." Ethan had shared the email. Then he stood up. He did not defend me in a dramatic speech. That would not have sounded like him. He simply said, "Aunt Linda offered to attend quietly or transfer the event if we took responsibility for the cost. We rejected both. She did not cancel without warning." Marissa stared at him. "Why are you doing this now?" "Because you just told everyone something that isn't true." Gail said they could discuss it privately. Ethan answered, "We should have done that before discussing Linda publicly." Tessa could not hear every exchange, and guests remembered different phrases. Some left early. Others stayed for cake because they had come to celebrate a baby, not audit a family. But one fact was clear: Ethan stopped protecting the simplified story. At 5:30, he arrived at my house alone. I was sitting at the kitchen table with the green folder closed in front of me. He looked more tired than he had the week before. "I told the truth," he said. Tessa called. "Marissa says I betrayed her. How do you feel?" "Like I waited too long." He sat across from me and described the attempted pickup at Hawthorne. Gail had created the alternate email address because she believed the floral materials belonged to Marissa once they were paid for. Marissa knew the authorization had not come from me but convinced herself I would not object because the items were otherwise wasted. "That is how this keeps happening," Ethan said. "She decides what you should be willing to give, and then your actual answer becomes an inconvenience." It was the clearest thing he had said about the pattern. He then opened his phone and showed me an account I had never seen. Marissa's business had accepted 3 deposits for future events using photographs and plans from the cancelled Hawthorne shower as examples of her work. The deposits totaled $7,500. 2 clients believed she had produced the conservatory event. She had not told them it was cancelled. Ethan discovered the payments that morning while looking for money to cover the replacement rentals. Their joint checking account was nearly empty, but the business account held the deposits. Marissa refused to use them because she said they were needed to secure vendors for the client events. This did not prove fraud. Businesses accept deposits before work is performed. But presenting a cancelled event as completed work could create disputes if clients learned the truth. I told Ethan to speak with an accountant and perhaps a business attorney. I did not offer to pay for either. He nodded. I wasn't going to ask. The sentence was small, but it marked a change. Then he took a folded document from his jacket. It was a revised payment schedule for the house loan. He had calculated monthly payments of $560 beginning August 1st, consistent with the note. I can do this from my salary, he said. Even if Marissa doesn't agree. The loan is both of your obligation. I know. But I signed it too. I read the schedule. The numbers worked. This is a start, I said. He looked disappointed, perhaps hoping I would say everything was forgiven. I could have eased the moment with reassurance. Instead, I let the truth remain appropriately sized. A start was valuable. It was not repair. He asked whether I still wanted a relationship with the baby. Of course. Marissa says she needs space. She may take space. She may not use money or access to demand that I abandon a reasonable boundary. What if she refuses to let you visit? I felt the old fear move through me. It was sharp and physical. For years, that fear would have opened my checkbook. Then I will grieve it, I said. I will not buy my way around it. Ethan's eyes filled. Mine did too. He said, I thought keeping everyone calm was the same as keeping the family together. Sometimes calm is only the silence around the person getting what they want. We sat there until the kitchen became dark around us. Before he left, Ethan asked to see the invitation. I opened the green folder and handed it to him. The watercolor rabbit had a faint bend across one corner from being handled so often. I am sorry you received this, he said. I am not, I told him. I am sorry for what it meant. But I needed to see it. That was the day everything changed. Not because Marissa was publicly defeated. She was not. Not because the family universally sided with me. They did not. It changed because Ethan finally told the truth when lying would have been easier, and I finally allowed him to face the consequences of choices I had spent years cushioning. What remained afterward? The baby, a boy named Noah, was born 7 weeks later. Ethan sent me a photograph from the hospital. Marissa did not include a message. I replied that Noah was beautiful and that I loved them all. I did not ask to visit. 3 days later, Ethan invited me to the house for 20 minutes while Marissa's mother was there. The visit was clearly supervised. I accepted it for what it was. Noah slept against my chest with one fist tucked beneath his chin. He knew nothing about contracts, invitations, loans, or adults who turned fear into strategy. Holding him did not erase what happened. It reminded me why boundaries mattered. Children learn family rules long before they understand family stories. Marissa remained distant. She never apologized for banning me or for the alternate email sent to Hawthorne. She did send $486 6 months later with the note, reimbursement for invitations. I acknowledged receipt without adding commentary. Her event business did not collapse, but the planned launch changed. 2 prospective clients asked for clearer portfolios and references. One withdrew. The other continued after Marissa revised her materials to describe the Hawthorne images as design concepts rather than a completed event. She began taking smaller jobs she could finance through client deposits and her own credit. Gail and I stopped speaking except at necessary family occasions. She continued to believe I had overreacted. I continued to believe she helped create the conditions that made the reaction necessary. Not every damaged relationship becomes wiser. Some simply become more accurately distant. Ethan made the first loan payment on August 1st and every payment after that for the next year. He and Marissa began marriage counseling after repeated arguments about the business account and the shower. I know this only because Ethan told me. I did not ask for details. They remained married. Repair is sometimes 2 people discovering whether honesty can survive inside a relationship built around avoidance. My relationship with Ethan changed too. He called less often at first, but the calls became more direct. He stopped asking for money indirectly through stories about emergencies. When his car needed a transmission, he told me he had arranged a payment plan before mentioning the problem. I realized how much of our closeness had been organized around my ability to rescue him. Building something different felt awkward, slower, and more real. I opened a custodial investment account for Noah with an initial deposit of $2,500. Ethan received the paperwork. Marissa did not control withdrawals, and neither did I beyond the legal terms. The account was not a reward for access. It was a gift with a structure that would outlast our moods. As for the refunded shower money, I used part of it to replace my aging roof. I donated $1,500 to a local program that supplies car seats and diapers to new parents leaving temporary housing. The remaining amount returned to my savings. I kept the rabbit invitation. For months, it remained in the green folder beside contracts and receipts, proof of the day I was told love should keep paying after dignity had been removed. Eventually, I took it out and placed it in a small memory box with Rachel's photograph, Ethan's first school picture, and the hospital bracelet he wore when he came to live with me after his mother died. That may sound strange. The invitation had hurt me. But it also marked the moment I stopped confusing endless access to my resources with permanent belonging in someone's heart. I had promised Ethan he would always have family. I still meant it. What I had never promised was that family could use me without limit, rewrite my role, or threaten me with absence whenever I asked for honesty. Noah is 18 months old now. When I visit, he reaches for my glasses and laughs when I move them out of reach. Marissa is polite. Sometimes politeness is the first bridge. Sometimes it is the final boundary. I do not yet know which one this will be.